Cecily? Cecily? Come, it is time for intellectual pleasures. The German grammar is on the table. We'll begin yesterday's lesson.
Why don't you lie, Jen? It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you must improve yourself in every way.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
You must remember his constant anxiety about his unfortunate brother, Ernest.
I do wish Uncle Jack would allow his unfortunate younger brother, Ernest, to come visit us sometime. I'm sure you would be a good influence on him.
I do not think that even I could produce an effect on a character so irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not in favor of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. Put away your diary, Cecily. Memory, my dear child, is a diary that we all carry about with us.
I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels we read.
Do not speak so slightingly of the 3-volume novel. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? And was it ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I used the word in the sense of lost or mislaid.
Oh, I see Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short walk with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Oh, I know that, dear Miss Prism, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache.
Dear Cecily, I hope you are not being inattentive in your studies. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically.
Dear Dr. Chasuble, I find I have a headache after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure.
Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of review may omit. It is somewhat too sensational.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing. Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven up from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, the Albany, Uncle Jack's brother. Ask Mr. Worthing to come in.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I am so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does!
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
If your cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily.
If you are not, then you've certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner.
Of course I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm sure it must have been very pleasant, but I don't think you should be very proud of that.
I'm not. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Being with you, I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
How daily life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come into the dining room?
You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
A snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I'm not sure I would care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. You do not seem to realize that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often, I've been told, not even to her.
Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing,
I have returned sooner than I expected.
Mr. Worthing, I trust this scar before to stop cloaking some terrible phenomenon.
My brother,
Still leading his life of pleasure.
dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Your brother Ernest is dead.
Quite dead. My poor brother Ernest. He had many faults. It was a sad day.
You were with him at the end.
No, he died in Paris. A severe chill.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. Not all of us are perfect. I myself am strangely susceptible to troubles. You would no wish for me to make some allusion to this terrible affliction in next Sunday's sermon. The text could be adapted to almost any occasion, from celebrations to christenings.
Christenings? The fact is, dear doctor, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon.
But surely you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
At what hour you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot around about 5.
Oh, Uncle Jack! I'm so pleased to see you. But what horrid clothes you've got on? And what's the matter, Uncle Jack? You look as if you had a toothache. And I have got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Your brother Ernest!
What nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he have treated you, he is still your brother. I'll tell him to come out.
These are very joyful tidings.
My brother is in the dining room. Good heavens!
Brother John! I've come down from town to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I've given you. That I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand.
But, Uncle Jack, there is some good in everyone. Ernest had just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury.
Bunbury? I won't have him talking to you about Bunbury or anything else.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake his hand, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see such a perfect reconciliation? Why don't we leave these two brothers together?
Cecily, you will come with us.
You have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
I feel very happy.
You young scoundrel out! You must get out of this place as soon as possible!
I put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir.
What?
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Mary, order the dog cart at once. It seems Mr. Ernest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful lie, one Jack. No one is cold.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
Cecily's a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. It is perfectly ridiculous to be in mourning for a man that is actually staying with you for a whole week.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week.
I certainly wouldn't leave you. As long as you were in mourning, it would be most unfriendly.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
If you're not too long, I've never seen someone take so long to dress with such little result.
This blundering, as you call it, has not been a great success for you. Goodbye.
I think it's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily. That's everything.
I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
But before we do, I hope I shall not offend you if I state that you seem to me to be the visible personification of absolute perfection.
Thank you. Now, if you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary. Pray, Ernest, do not stop. I like taking down dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. Pray, Ernest, do not cough. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I dared to love you wildly. Will you marry me?
You silly boy, of course. We've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months?
Ever since Uncle Jack first confessed that he had a younger brother who was very wicked, I fell in love with you. But of course, there is the question of your name. You must not laugh at me, but it had always been a girl's dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest.
You mean you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
I might respect you, I might admire your character, but I'm afraid I would not be able to give you my undivided attention. Besides, Ernest is your name.
Oh, your rector here is thoroughly experienced in all rites of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Chasuble has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Oh, I must see you on the most important christening. I mean, business. I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to talk to Mr. Miss Fairfax has just called to talk to Mr. Worthing.
Pray, ask the lady to come in, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
A Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. I like you already. And my first impressions are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure,
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
if you wish.
Then that is all quite settled now, is it not?
I hope so.
My mother, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. Would you mind me having a look at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, resides here also?
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations. My dear guardian, the assistance of this prison, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Ernest never mentioned to me he had a ward.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes?
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my ward. It is his brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me he had a brother. You are quite sure it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
There must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me.
I'm afraid you must be under some slight misconception, Miss Fairfax. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is a very curious thing, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. I'm sorry, dear Cecily, but I'm afraid I have prior claim.
I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
Charlotte tea here as usual.
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, from the top of the hill, one can see 5 counties.
I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden you have here, Miss Cardew. I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London. May I offer you some tea? Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my teeth with lumps of sugar. And although I asked for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy, there are no lengths to which I will not go.
Ernest, my own Ernest.
Gwendolyn, darling.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask, you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not.
Then you may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose aunt is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing. This is Uncle Jack.
Jack? Oh!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
Good heavens, Gwendolyn. Of course I'm engaged to Gwendolyn.
Thank you. You may.
I felt there must be some error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is embracing you now is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Oh! Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
Yes, it has been for years.
I'm afraid a gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
It seems to me, dear Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have the opportunity of coming up to town to see me?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
The explanations seem to be quite satisfactory.
I am more than content.
But there are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them?
Could we not both speak at the same time?
What an excellent idea! I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take time for me?
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier, that is all.
Our Christian names, is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you're prepared to do this terrible thing.
To please me, you're ready to face this fearful ordeal.
We are.
Darling!
Darling!
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
Gwendolyn, what's the meaning of this?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young and of physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by a trusty maid, I followed her at once by a luggage train. You must clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately. And now, as regards Algernon! Algernon! Yes, Augusta. May I ask, is this the house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides? No. Bunbury! No. doctors found he could not live. So, read that.
He seems to have great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I'm glad, however, that he finally made up his mind to some definite course of action. Mr. Worthing, may I ask, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is holding in what seems to me an unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon? Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married. Lady Bracknell.
I don't know if there's anything particularly exciting in this part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that seem to go on seem to me to be particularly above the proper average. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of the question. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations of London?
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square.
That sounds not unsatisfactory.
I also in my possession certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the English and German variety.
Ah, a life crowded with incident. Has Miss Cardew any little fortune?
About £130,000 in funds.
Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Come over here, dear. Pretty child, your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looks as if nature might have left it. But we can soon alter all that. I suppose I must give my consent.
I beg your pardon for interrupting, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent.
On what grounds do you object?
My dear Lady Bradford, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwen, I will gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
I am happy to say that everything is quite right for the christenings.
The christening? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both these men have expressed an immediate desire for baptism. Miss Prism and I have been waiting in the church.
Miss Prism, did I hear you mention a Miss Prism? Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, and the very picture of respectability.
This is obviously the same person. I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
Dear Dr. Chasbourne, I was worried what was detaining you. Prism! Prism! Prism, where is that baby? Prism, 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house in charge of a preambulator that contained a baby in the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, the preambulator was found containing a manuscript of a 3-volume novel, but the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby? Lady Bracknell, I do not know. I only wish I did. The facts are these. On the morning you mentioned, I prepared to take the baby out in its preambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place a manuscript of a work of fiction I had written. In a moment of mental abstraction, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet, and I placed the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
This is a matter of no small importance to me, Miss Prism. Where did you deposit the handbag that contained that infant?
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations of London.
Which railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to the next room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait for me here.
If you are not too long, I will wait for you here all my life.
What do you suppose this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Caswell. I did not tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences like this are not supposed to occur.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It appears to be mine. Here is the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger days, and here on the lock are my initials. Yes, this bag is undoubtedly mine. I am happy to have it restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes! Mother!
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried! There is the woman who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor, dear sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon, elder brother.
Algy's elder brother. Then I have a brother after all.
But what is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Aunt Augusta, at the time Miss Prism left me in her handbag, had I been christened already? What was my name? Let me know the words.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
What was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present moment recall what the gentleman's Christian name was. He had one, I'm sure of it. He was eccentric, I admit, but only in later years.
Algy, can you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we weren't even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
The army list of the time period. Yes! The army list of the last 40 years are here. These delightful records should have been my constant study. M. Jennings, Malcolm, Maxwell. What ghastly names they have. Moncrief, Lieutenant 1840, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General 1869, Christian names. Ernest John. I always told you, Gwendolyn, my name is Ernest. Well, it is Ernest after all. I mean, it naturally is Ernest.
My own Ernest. I felt from the first you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly. All his life, he's been speaking nothing but the truth.
Letitia!
Frederick, at last.
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolyn, at last.
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I now realize for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
director, Mrs. Crow. We have flowers coming for you in a second there in the prop room. And then we have our assistant director, Mrs. Wolf. And we just wanted to say thank you because you guys have put so much hard work into this and you make us shine so bright. So thank you so much for all that you do. Well, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate all of you coming.